Tuned in to News and Views with myself, Salalo Makwidiri. We're going to be putting a spotlight on a remarkable Johannesburg story, a story about art, nature, and activism, and how one person's vision can essentially transform an entire city. Since 2012, multidisciplinary artist James Delaney has quietly led one of the most successful urban regeneration projects in South Africa, the restoration of the Wilds, a once neglected 16-hectare park in Houghton. If you're in Johannesburg, you should know it. It has turned into a beautiful recreational kind of spot for a lot of Joburgers. And through more than a decade of volunteer mobilization, over 100 sculptures and creative landscape redesigns, James has turned what it was once an abandoned unsafe space into one of Johannesburg's top-rated public parks. His iconic pink giraffe sculpture, I'm sure you've seen it all, really, really beautiful sculpture, now visible from the M1. It's just one example of how art and environment can meet to reshape public space. James' work bridges creativity and community, blending sculpture, ecology, heritage, and civic engagement. And today, we're pleased to have him join us on News and Views to talk about the Wilds, his artistic practice, and what it really means and takes to restore a public space with heart, imagination, and people power. James, welcome to Salam Media. Thank you so much for giving us your time. Good morning.
Thank you, and good morning to you too.
I think let's jump right into it. As someone that has been brought up here in Johannesburg for the longest of times, the Wilds, today might be safe and a beautiful, urban sanctuary, but it wasn't always this way. What first drew you to this neglected park back in 2012, if I'm not mistaken?
I moved into an apartment which overlooks the Wilds, and I got a dog who needed going for a walk, and I just needed somewhere to take him. And it just seemed crazy to me to drive to parks further away when I lived next to a 40-acre green space, which all my neighbors said was too dangerous to go into. But I thought, no, I like nature, so I'll go and have a look.
Let's talk about how it began, the restoration process of it, and did you imagine it would become one of the city's most loved public spaces as it is now? I mean, sometimes you go to the Wilds, not even parking is so full.
Yeah, had no idea what it would become. So people often ask me about fixing up other public spaces. It's like, where should they start? And I just say, just start with the plant in front of you. Pull out one weed. And that's literally how I began. Was I would go in with a pair of clippers and I'd just start pruning some of the plants and pulling out the invasives, separating the plants that were there and replanting them, and just piece by piece, like flower bed by flower bed. I just slowly went through it. And only after a couple of years did I realize actually this has become a bigger thing, and it needed more resources. I had to involve more people in the community. But the first couple of years, really, it was just my private back garden of 40 acres.
No, most definitely. How did you, decide? And I think that's the most interesting aspect of it. How did you decide to bring, large scale public art into the Wilds, and what role does art playing in encouraging people to reclaim public spaces? Because I think that's one of my favorite things about the Wilds right now is, these little hidden gems of art when you walk through, the pathways, and it's just there, some random piece of art, and it's so beautiful, and you remember it as your own personal spot. Why did you decide to go this route to integrate art into the Wilds and the park itself?
It's nice to hear you seeing these things. That's great. I often find that kids notice it. When kids walk through the Wilds, they notice the stuff everywhere. But adults tend to talk to each other and have their eyes firmly looking forward, and they race. You've obviously got more of a childlike approach, which is a compliment. So the challenge that I had was that the Wilds was considered very dangerous back in those days, and people were super scared of it. And I realized after a couple of years that I had to engage community to bring them back to the Wilds to make it sustainable, because you can't have an urban space without people to help to look after it physically, volunteers to fund it, and to enjoy it. And that's what's going to make it relevant for another 100 years. And and I was really struggling. I couldn't even get my friends to go there because they were all so scared of its reputation at the time. And I came across the idea of doing the charcoal drawings I was doing in my studio and getting those cut out of steel, and originally pinning those into trees in a yellowwood forest. And that was the installation I did in 2017 of 67 owls. And it worked so successfully, but I then everything at the Wilds has been like do something and then observe what the response is, the response of people and the response of nature. And the response of people was to arrive in the car park. As you said, the car park would get jam-packed on weekends. They'd all rush up to the owl forest, count the owls, and then rush back home again.
Yeah.
And so I wanted them now to explore the rest of the park. So I put ostriches on top of the hill, and I put the kudu up, and I put duikers and klipspringers, and I slowly started to put them around as navigation devices, so people would then walk to the different points to go and see them, and then they started exploring more. And by having more people walking around, that basically made the park safe. It's made safe by us, not by
Mm,
cameras or guards or whatever. It's just like good people walking there regularly. And then
mm,
the pink giraffe there's a busy road that cuts the park in half. And I thought all those people are driving past, but they've got no idea what's inside the park. So let's intrigue them a bit. And a giraffe
mm,
being a tall thing, if I thought if I paint it bright pink, they'll notice. And it peers out from the trees and you see it as you drive past. And that then makes people be inquisitive about what's there. And actually I heard from somebody on Sunday when I was there that she'd met two ladies from Soweto who commute. They work, I think, in Midrand, and they go past that road in a minibus taxi every day. And they kept on seeing this pink giraffe and thinking, like, what is that? And so
mm,
one weekend they left Soweto and they came to have a look at the pink giraffe. And then now it's become their favorite park and they walk there every weekend. So that's the kind of the mechanism of the art, is to engage people and bring them back. We now
mm.
have about 60 mosaic artworks. There's a whole bunch of other stuff which you'll notice, yeah, as you walk, as you have.
No, most definitely. And I think you mentioned something very, very important, that, it's up to the community itself, to make sure that the park is safe. It becomes what it has become today. And it's interesting for me that you've mobilized volunteers for a lot of years, and raised a lot of money. I think up to R1 million, if I'm not mistaken, for the revitalization project of the wilds. What does this tell us about, Joburg residents and the general desire to reclaim the city, if I can put it that way? I think there are so many spaces that have so much memory, that hold so much memory for a lot of people in the city, but they can't frequent anymore because of, well, we all know the story of the city of Johannesburg, and some of the failures and inadequacies of the municipality. But what does it say, the example of the Wilds itself, about that desire to have Johannesburg be a place like that, a place where you can frequent, make memories with your kids, the same way that people are doing right now with the Wilds. I know it's a very, very important, part of my life, and that of my partner. We often go there on weekends sometimes, and it's incredible. The desire of Joburg is to reclaim the city. You've seen that firsthand, and I'd like to maybe get your insight on that.
So I think Joburgers are pretty resilient people who like to make a plan and do stuff. And you see other parks around the city getting really nicely fixed up now, like James and Ethel Gray Park and Zoo Lake and others. Um, and people sometimes, like, they'll moan about the government's not doing this or that, and they kind of sit on their hands. I mean, it's not going to help you by doing that, and you're going to feel pretty miserable. It's much more fun to get involved and do stuff. And I find South Africans and Joburg people are very keen gardeners. They like plants. They like working with the earth.
Mm,
It comes from our, we all have a farming background, I think, in our ancestry, and this gives us a chance to get back in touch with that. And so it's fun. Like, it's like really nice, like leisure time. It's like great to get your hands dirty and do stuff. So for me, it's like not work at all. And I would encourage other people to take that view. So if you've got a public space near you that needs a bit of love and care, just go and do it. And
mm,
plants are cheap. They're free. You can just go and take a cutting and stick it in the ground. The Wilds is all indigenous plants, and they're particularly good for that. Or collect
mm,
seeds and just scatter the seeds and a bit of felt and watch the flowers grow up. It's a thing which is achievable for everybody, and on a very small scale, and then one can grow that. And government is open to this. So City Parks has entered into partnerships with many parks, with community groups to help them fix them up. And so they see this. They've got more than 2,000 parks to manage. They can't do it all. And they're looking for community partners to help them. So, you can start fixing up or planting and then approach city parks and say, okay, I'd like to enter into an agreement and adopt the space. And then you're properly empowered to do it. And it isn't a uniquely South African thing as well. I'm quite familiar with Central Park in New York City,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's 2/3 funded by the local residents, by the neighbors of City Park, of Central Park. So only government of New York City only funds 1/3 of it. So this model happens all over the world. We sometimes think it's done only by governments, but it isn't. It's the partnership which makes the magic happen.
No, most definitely. Lastly, before I let you go, what's next for the Wilds right now? For your own work, in public spaces, are there, other similar sites in your work that you believe can be revived in the same way?
I'm working with Josie My Josie, who are making great strides in fixing up downtown. And I'm working with my team on public artworks and the gateways into the city. And we've identified now Library Gardens, which is that old park right in the center of the city between the library and the old city hall, which is now the Gauteng legislature. And that space doesn't look great and doesn't have much greenery. And being right in the middle of the city, it should be a place that people go for a picnic and, go chill on the grass. So we are looking at ways that we can revitalize that in partnership with City Parks.
No, most definitely looking forward to that, James. Thank you so much for the wonderful work that you're doing, and I think a great conversation. Talking to the man that gave us the iconic pink giraffe. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. See you at the Wilds.
Definitely. And with that, we've come to the end of today's edition of News and Views. Thank you so much for staying with us. It's been another incredible edition of the show. I'll be back with you again for the Wednesday edition of the show. Otherwise, for myself and everyone that made it possible, we'll see you again tomorrow. Shop, shop.